a couple years ago where I was working on my thinking. I was looking at my resentments and my fears, the things I've been carrying with me for a very long time, and I processed them, and I started to see how I was creating the life that I live. And what happened as a result of the work that I was doing was I had a very profound spiritual experience. I was walking down by the beach one day, and it overcame me, and it just hit me. And
think about the conditions at the beach, in appreciation, open vortex.
It was the first time I ever felt worthy or deserving, and I wasn't beating myself up, and I was
first time
glad.
Ever that I let that worthy love that my inner being always offers to me, first time I let it in.
Yes. For the next couple months, I felt guidance from within. Like I would enter into a room and I would pick the perfect place to sit, and have great experiences. I would feel a deep inner glow, and then I seem to slide back into sloppy thinking.
It's all right.
And I go there quite often.
It's easy to turn back into an observer of variety rather than a selective sifter. But you can't get very far into it without launching a rocket of desire that says, I like the feeling of alignment more. Now you know what you know. You can't slip far. And that's really why we talk about step 5. Getting back into some resistance and not being mad at yourself is the most important part, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's hard because I know that I'm doing it and I know what's possible, but for some reason, I don't do the stuff that...
Well, here's the reason. The reason is because law of attraction, an equal opportunity employer, will cause momentum on whatever thoughts that you're giving your attention to. And so sometimes you're giving your attention to something and you don't realize you're doing it, and you get momentum. So that's why we're offering this analogy today about being more aware of where you're putting your engines on your train track. And from this point forward, you'll have an even keener awareness of that. So here's how it works with most people. We really want you to hear this. So let's say that you're, as you've just been describing yourself recently, where you identify a desire and then you sloppily think about it. So engine, opposing directions. Well, what happens then is, in knowing what you don't want, you again know what you do want, so another engine. But then you get practical and sloppy in your thinking, so you put another engine there. In other words, facing reality causes you to put the engine in opposition to your desire. So now it's getting a little more tense, and now you really know what you don't want, because you not only don't want where you are, but you don't want the tension either. So now you launch another rocket of desire that has something more to do with wanting to be better at this and wanting to be more deliberate. And so another engine, and then you beat up on yourself because you're not as deliberate as you want to be. So another engine. So now the stakes are getting greater, aren't they? Because you're pulling yourself in both directions. Now what can happen, and what does happen to a lot of people, is that they get so much momentum going in opposing directions that then something big snaps, where you just finally just can't take it anymore, especially because you had that empowering moment on the beach, especially since you've had so many moments of resonance as you're listening to our recordings or to other things that are inspirational. And so as this resistance gets stacked up, now you have a whopper of a desire that you launch, and that desire is so strong that you begin moving in the direction. Now you're dragging yourself. It's like the day Jerry and Esther had some of those big Prevost buses over 10 years. They had a few of them, and they towed a big car behind it, Suburban. And one day they had this sort of checklist that they went through, and Esther failed to release the parking brake on the car, and they dragged it behind the bus like a sled. Burned up the brakes. The brake fluid was so hot on all 4 wheels, the brakes were fried. The car was never the same again. But the reason we tell you the story is the bus in its power did not even feel the dragging of the car behind it. When your desire is strong enough, you can still move forward even if you've got some resistance. It's just hard on your brakes. So nothing can really go wrong. You could approach life in this way. You could want something and doubt it a little, feel the discord right away, clean up your vibration, get the doubt out of the way, and off you go. And then momentum would increase, and it would get better and better, and you'd have a lovely time. Or you could want it and doubt it and then want it more and then doubt it more and then want it more and then doubt it more and then want it more and then doubt it more and then want it more and then doubt it more and then launch this gigantic rocket of desire that just drags you forward, and you say, I got to where I wanted to go, but it was a rougher ride than it needed to be. So the moral of the story, pay attention to how you feel more incrementally, which is really the point that you're making here. When you use the word sloppy thinking, that really is the operative word. Deliberate thinking is the other end of that. So let's use other words. Deliberate thinking, sloppy thinking. Let's use softer words. Thinking on purpose, thinking by default. Let's use softer words. Thinking more about what I do want and a little less about what I don't want. Let's use softer words. I'm doing a good job and sometimes not so good. Let's do even softer words, softer resistance. It's getting better and better. I'm understanding it more and more. Things really are working out for me. I like the clarity that's come to me. I know how it works. I often demonstrate how it works. Not all the time, but I'm doing really well. Just be nicer to yourself about it, because nobody's taking score on your progress except you. Your inner being isn't saying, look where he is. Have you heard nothing from us? There's none of that. There's none of that, because the contrast does bring clarity. So it's all good.
Which makes me almost afraid to ask this question.
Then our work here is done.
No, this is the one I really wanted to know.
All right.
All right.
Prepare yourself.
Thoughts are things, and
they aren't immediately, but you think them long enough, get enough momentum going, thoughts will become things. Thoughts turn into things. You can catch the thought before it's a thing if you don't want it, and it won't turn into a thing. Or you can encourage the thought if you do want it, and it will turn into a thing. But thoughts aren't instantly things. That's what you do to them.
Well,
you
but
turn
where do
the thoughts to
thoughts
things.
come from? I can see aligning myself with inspired thoughts on how to create something, but like my regular everyday negative thoughts of looking at something and seeing what's wrong, is that something that I'm aligning with?
Yeah.
Or is that something that I'm creating myself?
All of it is the same. All of it is the same. Your alignment with it is your creating of it.
Yeah.
Want to talk further about that?
I'm just trying to figure out why I slide back into the sloppy thinking and wondering.
We can tell you exactly
you
why.
answered that in the monologue
Yes.
at the beginning, and it's about, and I realize what I need to do, but I'm trying to find out why
Give
I
yourself
don't.
a break with these words. Law of attraction is responding. And so when it feels like my thoughts are thinking me, now when the thoughts of what you want feel like they're thinking you, that's when those impulses keep coming and you're firing on all cylinders, and everywhere you turn a new idea comes, and you like it when it feels like those thoughts are thinking you. And of course they're not. Your thoughts aren't thinking you, you're just rendezvousing with them. But when it feels like unwanted thoughts are thinking you, or they're dragging you into places that you don't want to be, just stop and acknowledge that you're rendezvousing with those thoughts because there's something active in your vibration that's making it so. And then just stop and laugh about it, because how do you even know that? You're feeling emotion, and that's a good thing, which means your guidance is working. And so if in the midst of that you will stop and say, oh, this negative emotion means my inner being is thinking a thought about this that is different than the thought I'm thinking about it. I wonder what Jerry thinks about this. Really, if someone is able to get a clear impression of what Jerry is thinking about this, don't you think that you could hear clearly what your inner being is thinking about that? And that knowledge, that understanding, that belief will put you in a better and better position to know what your inner being is thinking about that. And when you turn your thoughts more in that direction, the tension will dissipate and the negative emotion will too.
So if I just release the resistance and be open to whatever.
But here's the thing, you got to catch it in the early subtle stages, because once momentum gets going, it's harder and harder and harder to do. So that's why we like to encourage that you get out ahead of it by, when you go to bed at night, say, momentum's going to stop. And when I wake up, I'm going to start the momentum more toward the things that I do want. Here's the reason that all of this is happening. We can give you a very simple reason of why law of attraction is responding to you in the way that it is. Your question is not why is law of attraction responding? Your question is, why do I slip back? Why am I not doing a better job of controlling my thoughts? And here's exactly why. The manifested reality is more compelling. It just is. There's more to see and hear and smell and taste and touch about it. People are talking about it. It's getting your attention. It feels more real, so it feels more deserving of your objective observation of it. But that's why we keep doing the sales job that we do whenever you're willing to get together and listen to us. That's our whole point. We want this vibrational reality to begin to feel as real or more real to you than what's already manifested. And that's why we say what's manifested is old news. It really is. So even though it's entertaining, it's really not that helpful if you want to experience something that is new. It takes an understanding of how these laws work and how the universe fits together. And so, do you believe that you have an inner being?
Yes.
And do you believe that you have, we're not even going to use the word belief. Does it seem logical to you that there is a vibrational reality that is preceding the manifested reality? Does the concept of thoughts turning to things intrigue you?
Absolutely.
You never see any pipelines from other planets trucking stuff in or piping things in, and yet look at the evolution of your planet. And so it's obvious that thoughts are turning to things, isn't it? Ideas are becoming reality. So how does it happen? It happens just in the way we've been describing it. Exploring contrast, launching rockets, aligning with the new rocket, improving your point of attraction, getting into the receptive mode, ideas flowing, and thoughts turning to things. And so now that you understand that, you'll just be a little more aware of what you're feeling, a little more aware of what you're thinking. And if you really want to be a deliberate creator, you'll think more thoughts on purpose. The thing that we want to emphasize with all of you is that what you want is already accomplished, and that your singular task is to chill out and let it in. And that's the part that's hardest for you, because you've been trained that gain comes from pain, and if you don't struggle, then you don't get it. That's the strongest thing that's in your vibration, that's making you try to be objective about things. And hear us, this sifting and sorting is also a natural intent that you were born with, because if you don't have that propensity to sift and sort and evaluate and try to decide, then you can't be a deliberate creator. That's step one. Step one matters a lot. So we don't want to take away from you your willingness to do step one, because then, and don't worry, we can't, because contrast is just going to keep presenting itself to you. But if we can emphasize within you, help you really decide, oh, I really want to feel good. And the thing that we think will take you there the fastest is when these vibrations begin to turn to thoughts, and when these thoughts begin to turn to things, and you begin to get those impulses, and then you begin to see the results of your impulses, and you have this visceral, real life, real time recognition that your focused thought is the reason that these vibrations are turning to thoughts, and these thoughts are turning to things, and that you are the creator of your own experience. Once you have that breakthrough on just one or two things, even if they're the simplest of things, that's when you become more willing to do it more often. And that's why that inspiration to go to that movie that brought that peace sign on that Volkswagen, along with the mind your gap in the same situation, that's evidence to you that you ask and the universe delivered. And it's evidence to you that you ask in an attitude of non-resistance and the universe delivered. We just want to emphasize the universe is delivering every single time, every single time, every single time. But the variable is where you are in relationship to it. And so now you know that, just play with it. Don't punish yourself. Don't practice it. Don't give yourself scores or grades about it. Just enjoy when you happen to line up with it, and don't make a big deal of it when you don't. And what you begin to notice is you're just doing it more and more and more on a more and more regular basis, and more things are manifesting. But the most important clue is you feel better. You just feel better. You just feel better. Clarity just flat out feels better. It just feels better.